Hey there, good evening. Nice to see you. It's time for the Bronx Buzz. This is Bronx Night's program where we talk to reporters, writers, editors, and in the second segment, filmmakers, which I say advisedly. But to get started, I'm just thrilled that the contributing writer who covers food, arts, and culture for the Bronx Times is here. E.T. Rodriguez, nice to see you again.
Hey, great to be here.
I guess we're all excited. People in the Bronx should be excited because the lifestyle page that you had been working on has now got a little bit of energy, doesn't it?
Yep, it's back and it's better than ever. It's now a six-page spread, and we'll be focusing on stories, lifestyle, arts, and culture that are going on in the Bronx.
hmm this is something that we know. We who live here know what's going on in the Bronx. There's a ton of stuff happening. It's really nice that Chris and the other folks at the Bronx Times are giving you the space now to really cover it wholeheartedly.
Yeah, I'm really, really happy about that. Like I said before, I am a Bronx kid, and this borough is really important to me, and it's just so underrepresented when it comes to those kinds of stories. And I'm happy to be able to do that.
Could you talk a little bit about your background and your interest in this? I know you've been a kind of a food and entertainment reporter for a while, but let's let people know who you are, so when they open up the newspaper and see the beautiful new lifestyles section, that they'll know who ET is.
Sure.
What is this all about for you?
Yeah, I grew up on Moshulu Parkway. I went to Lehman College for my undergrad, where I graduated with a degree in art history, bachelor's. Then I got my master's at the Craig Newmark School of Journalism. And, one of the things I learned in my journalism program was find a void and fill it. That's how you become valuable. And the void I saw was the lack of food, arts, and culture reporting in the Bronx. I mean, my reporting has gotten me recognized by WNYC, because not because I'm so great, but more because it's not enough reporting. I'm just one of the very few people that are focusing on the borough and that kind of content.
Right,
And
let me just interject, focusing on the borough in that way,
correct.
and because we know, by the way, I'm a Lehman graduate as well. Did you know that?
No, I didn't.
Yes, I am. There's so much going on that people don't know about. And I just took a look at some of the stuff you wrote about in the past. The Bronx Zoo once had a human in captivity, which is beyond
Yeah.
crazy. I can't even characterize it. The every St. Patty's Day we get the shamrocks on the street, and you did the origin of the shamrocks. Um, I'm so glad you did the Grand Central Stones that are in Van Cortlandt Park, because I've walked and run and biked by there, and I said, "Wow, what a great story this is!" So you wrote that story. The other thing, which actually relates to the Lehman College thing, you wrote about this art exhibit that's there. Why don't you tell us a little bit about it, just to promote since you talked about being an art student at Lehman, just to promote our alma mater and what they've got there. I haven't seen it yet, but I'm going to go over there as soon as I get a moment, because of course we do Bronx Talk there. Tell me about that. Tell me about that art exhibit.
Yes. It's a beautiful exhibit, and it's all female artists. It's 45 female artists with about 60 works of art. And what it's doing is reclaiming the male gaze, right? The male gaze was coined in the 1970s. It's a phrase that women are depicted for the male eye, for the consumption of the heterosexual male. And this exhibit they're taking their bodies back. They're reclaiming their own perspective and their own vision on themselves. And it's just multimedia, it's in the space. There are there are paintings where there's literal fabric pouring out of the canvas. There's also an amazingly large rendition of a Renoir that's done specifically in spools of thread. And then there is
Wow.
this, I mean, it's just really, really big and colorful and
It,
in your face, and it's just a really fun exhibit
It
to go
it
check out.
sounds like it works on many different levels. In other
Absolutely.
words, that so you can look at it viscerally and just say as art, et cetera, et cetera. Um, so one thing we want to say to people who say, "Oh, I have my community has this event, or I'm doing this, or we've got a little music group that is happening. So let's see your email. We're going to put that up on the screen. It's etrodriguez317 at gmail.com.
Mhm.
Anybody who has something that they want to put up or thinks belongs in your column, there's a lot that belongs there, then please make sure you send it. The other thing I want to mention is the whole "did you know" um, concept in there, which is part of the whole lifestyles universe, right? I got that
Correct.
right? Tell us about "did you know,"
Yes.
because a lot of what I just told you was "did you know."
Yeah, I'm so glad that column is coming back. It's a column that Chris and I brainstormed together, Chris, the editor, and
Christian Falcone is the editor at the Bronx Times. Go
correct.
ahead.
And fun facts, interesting facts, historical facts about the Bronx. And it's back. And the first iteration of it being back was the Grand Central Stones, as we just talked about. Did you know that we have these stones that have been sitting in Grand Central Park for over 100 years? And yeah, and I'm definitely soliciting suggestions, because I'm doing the research by myself. I do the writing by myself. It's a big undertaking. It's a big historical undertaking. And if anybody can throw some fun facts at me that I'd be able to research, I would love that. So please send them my way.
What really, a lot of what you're telling us inspires me, not only about the growth of the paper, the fact that the paper understands that this is, so important to the Bronx, but your roots as a Bronx woman who grew up here and went to Lehman College. This means a lot to me because obviously I can relate to that sort of thing. In terms of that growing up in the Bronx, what is it that you take with you from that experience into this work? I mean, it seems very obvious, but one would think you have a lot of passion about it. One would think that you know about the borough, where all the bodies are buried, literally and figuratively. Anyway, I'm just curious about your upbringing and how that translates into what you do.
Yeah. Well, I didn't really realize how valuable it was where I was from until I got older. I was in the Bronx. I was a Bronx kid, no big deal. And then as I started to learn that the Bronx is underrepresented in arts and culture space, that the Bronx doesn't get featured when it comes to restaurants, when I started to realize that the Bronx is so left out and then it has a bad rap and poorest congressional district, all these things, that's when I realized, well, it's not what all these people think it is. It's such a beautiful place with so many arts and so much history too. As a matter of fact, one of my stories, I'm going to be focusing on Woodlawn Cemetery. So I said, we have to change that narrative. And if it's up to me, this kid that grew up in the Bronx, to do it, then I'm going to be that person.
Well, you and I obviously have something in common because I grew up in the Bronx and I've dedicated my professional life to doing this for essentially the same reason. The phrase that I've used for a lot of people, which is relevant here, it's like undiscovered territory. I mean, nobody knows we're here with the great artists and the great musicians and all that stuff. I mean, this is what the center of BronxNet is about. I should mention in this context, and you're welcome to. I mean, I'm sure you may have already done it. This painting behind me is a painting of Orloff Avenue. By Daniel Haubin, who is a great a Bronx landscaper. That's the kind of thing that we have going on here that nobody tells about. Um, are, are you super busy? Does it get crazy in terms of where do I turn first? Every neighborhood has got something. Every person knows somebody who's doing something. Does it get a little crazy? I mean, I know it does for us. Anderson, our producer, knows we're just so many people say, "God, we're making a movie, we're making a film, we're doing a painting, we have an art gallery, we have a concert." So does it get crazy for you?
It does. And, we're a very small team at the
Yes.
Bronx Times. And then, being that we've never really covered lifestyle and arts and culture before, it does fall on my shoulders to make sure that we have that covered. And so I'm fielding, I don't know, dozens of emails a day, press releases. Hey, we got this going, we got that. Some of it that's not pertinent to me, some of it that's going on in Florida. I'm just like, why are you sending me this email?
Well, because you're on the list now.
Right, right. So yeah, it's a lot, but it's the life I've chose, and I love what I do.
Mhm. What about the writing? As a writer, you could get lost in saying, "Wow, look at this art exhibit," or look at these paintings, or whatever it is. You get lost in that. How do you feel about being an arts writer in addition to, of course, wanting to promote and all those kinds of things?
Yeah, I'm torn. So I got into
Ah, you see, I knew I got you there.
writing because I like sharing experiences and sharing my voice. And so I would love to do magazine writing. And then I kind of got into news writing, and it's a whole different beast. And I have to remember to stay journalistic. And one of the things that Chris, the editor, always tells me is he's like, it's not a Pulitzer, just get it done. You know,
Well, because there is that deadline as opposed to a magazine, you may
right.
have a
And then I'm
month.
like, wait, but I have more interviews and I have more information. And,
Yeah,
the 600 story, I'm like, sorry, it's 1,000 words now,
yeah.
but I did it because I love writing, and I just, love being able to have that voice.
I think one of there are many really cool aspects that I'm lifting out of this conversation is literally that the fact that the Bronx Times recognizes how important lifestyles, who we are in the Bronx, how important that is to the people of the Bronx, and why they're dedicating a whole 6-page section to it. I mean, to me that shows, because I've obviously read the Bronx Times for years, shows growth in the paper, shows a great understanding of who the Bronx is.
I'm great. I'm so happy to be a part of it.
Great. So let's tell people to send you information. And
Yeah,
actually, I've got a couple of ideas when we're done with the show. I'm going to mention them to you. But it's Et Rodriguez at 317 at Gmail. Excuse me, Et Rodriguez 317 at gmail.com. Um, what's the timing like? What are the days that you want to get information? Like, in other words, what does your week cycle work like so that
there
people
is
can
none.
know I got to get it to ET by a
We're
certain time?
journalists, like I field every email, every phone
Stupid
call,
question.
every minute, all the time. I mean, obviously, if it's something that's happening tomorrow, we don't want to get something,
Yeah, 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 you can't do that.
we'd
Right.
like to get some, but more specifically, I'd like a lot of the did you know? If anybody can give me historical facts and information, help
Stuff
me
that
write this
people don't
column.
know about. Yeah, you
Correct.
can turn that
Let's write
around
this
pretty
column
good.
together. Want to
Listen, one thing we do know is that Et Rodriguez is one of us, and she's putting it out on the Bronx Times about lifestyles, about really who we are as people in the Bronx. Thank you so much for everything you do, and say hello to Laura and Chris and all my friends over there.
I will. Thank you so much,
Yeah.
Gary. It's always a pleasure.
Okay, we're going to take a short break, and then we're going to do a Did You Know? We're going to do a film right after this.